Number 8. Jermaine Foster. On October the 8th of 2021, a homeless mugger swiped an unnamed 29-year-old woman's phone at West 41st Street and Broadway in New York City. The suspect, later identified as Jermaine Foster, began making his getaway across Times Square. As he sprinted through the crossroads of the world, Foster slammed into Maria Ambrosio, a 58-year-old oncology nurse from New Jersey. The woman who'd reportedly been preparing to see her family for the first time since the onset of the pandemic was knocked to the pavement and began frothing at the mouth after suffering severe head trauma. She was subsequently declared brain dead, and 2 days after the incident, her family pulled her off life support. Foster's robbery and felony assault charges were thus upgraded to murder. His mother, who chose to remain nameless, expressed doubts that he was a thief, but confirmed he had no fixed address at the time of the incident. His stepfather reported that he suffered from mental health issues, which had allegedly worsened since he'd lost his biological father, who was his primary caretaker, to COVID-19 related complications. 26-year-old Foster's spree had allegedly begun prior to the cell phone theft. Earlier in the day, he'd barged into a woman's apartment on 6th Avenue and 38th Street, sat on her couch and declared himself to be an African prince. He then took $15 and fled, triggering the chain of events that would end in Ambrosio's death. Number 7. Mikhail Kreiner. On April the 7th of 2016, law enforcement in Austin, Texas, found the body of first-year student Haruka Weiser in Waller Creek on the University of Texas campus. It was determined that she'd been abused and had had her head beaten against a hard object before being fatally strangled with a nylon strap. The 18-year-old had last been seen leaving UT's drama building after dance practice, as investigators subsequently learned from surveillance footage. While heading home in the evening of April the 3rd, the student was followed by a man. Shortly before 10 p.m., he parked the red woman's bike he was riding and then went after Weiser down a path along the creek. He re-emerged in view of the camera at 11:25, limping and carrying a duffel bag, which was later identified as belonging to Weiser. A few hours later, the Austin Fire Department responded to a small fire in a vacant lot near campus. Homeless teenager Mikhail Kreiner was found sleeping at the scene. By that point, the authorities hadn't yet learned of Weiser's murder. Kreiner had been burning items at the scene, and he was found in the possession of a silver laptop, which emergency responders considered suspicious given his derelict status. The authorities took Kreiner to a non-profit youth center called LifeWorks. When the surveillance footage was released, firefighters and another witness found that the person in the video strongly resembled Kreiner. Evidence found at the scene of the fire also tied him to the student, and he was arrested for murder. Kreiner pleaded not guilty and took the stand in the ensuing trial, with his ensuing demeanor described as disturbing. He giggled at times when talking about his school life and claimed that he wanted to be a writer using adult material for entertainment. A journal entry called Therapy Gone Wrong, made in what he admitted was his handwriting, graphically described scenes of violence and abuse. He was ultimately found guilty of capital murder on June the 20th of 2018 and sentenced to life in prison with parole available after 40 years served. Number 6. Semi Williams. Florida teenager Ryan Rogers left his home in Palm Beach Gardens on November the 15th of 2021 to go for a ride on his bike. At around 7:30 in the evening, Rogers was heading south on Central Boulevard. Simultaneously, as confirmed by cell phone records and surveillance camera footage, 39-year-old derelict Semi Williams was heading north on the boulevard. Their paths crossed, and investigators would later determine that Williams, a man who struggled with severe mental illness, stabbed the teen to death. His body was found in a grassy area near the Interstate 95 overpass. When deputies went to take Williams into custody on first-degree murder charges, an altercation ensued. In the course of it, he alluded to the notorious Tuskegee experiment, when health branches of the U.S. government purposefully left hundreds of cases of syphilis untreated in the African-American community in order to observe the disease's effects. Williams was eventually overpowered, and as he was being placed in handcuffs, called one of the officers a white devil. A reported schizophrenia sufferer, Williams regularly posted short clips to his YouTube channel. In them, he expressed beliefs that he was being threatened, persecuted, and stalked. as part of a wider conspiracy. On the day of Rogers' fatal stabbing, he'd posted a clip in which he talked about implants in his body, which were actively used to monitor him. In a chilling video from the day after Rogers was killed, Williams claimed to have been attacked the previous night, saying, "They had people ride past me on bikes." According to updates from April of 2022, 2 psychologists had found him mentally competent to stand trial for the murder. Number 5. Alexander Wright. Since early June of 2021, a video of a random attack on an Asian woman in New York City was widely circulated and sparked outrage online. The unnamed 55-year-old victim was walking on Bayard Street in Chinatown when she was approached by a man from the opposite direction on May the 31st. In broad daylight, without warning or provocation, he then struck the woman in the face. The blow was delivered with such force that it caused the victim's cap to fly off her head. As shown by the video, she dropped to the ground and lost consciousness with her back against the supporting pillar of a restaurant terrace. The woman's injuries weren't fortunately deemed life-threatening. Her attacker was identified as 48-year-old Alexander Wright, who at the time had no fixed address. He had dozens of arrests on his record, which included armed robbery, assault, and drugs, dating as far back as 1989. There was an open case against him from an incident in the Bronx in July of 2020, when he'd struck a 72-year-old man in the face with a closed fist, causing injuries that required treatment in a hospital. He'd failed to appear in court twice in connection to that case. In another incident, he'd thrown hot coffee into the faces and eyes of 2 traffic officers, causing substantial pain and redness. The attack in Chinatown had occurred in the context of several similar incidents perpetrated against people of Asian descent, prompting the Stop Asian Hate movement. In the aftermath, Wright was charged with assault as a hate crime and possession of a controlled substance. Number 4. Craig Tamanaha. On December the 8th of 2021, dozens of passers-by in New York City's Midtown area watched as Fox News' all-American Christmas tree caught fire. The 50-foot tall tree was soon engulfed in flames, and the suspected arsonist, 49-year-old Craig Tamanaha, was arrested at the scene. He'd climbed up the tree and set it alight using an accelerant before scrambling to get away. Upon being taken into custody, he reportedly told the detective, "I have been thinking about lighting the tree on fire all day long." Tamanaha was described as unhoused, emotionally unstable, and as having a lengthy criminal record that spanned approximately 2 decades. He'd caused roughly $500,000 worth of damage in the arson incident and faced a slew of charges including second-degree criminal mischief, second-degree reckless endangerment, and fifth-degree arson. None of them had felony status, however, since the attack hadn't outright targeted a person. A few weeks earlier, Tamanaha had been arrested by the NYPD for exposing himself in front of the United States courthouse as Ghislaine Maxwell's human trafficking trial was taking place inside. In May of 2022, Tamanaha failed to reach a deal with the Manhattan District Attorney's Office for the Christmas tree incident. A new hearing was scheduled for mid-June, and while leaving the courthouse, Tamanaha was pictured showing the middle finger to the cameras. Number 3. Teri Elena Parkin. An unnamed male college student was viciously attacked by a derelict in Leeds, West Yorkshire, England, on September the 22nd of 2021. While the team was enjoying a night out during freshman week, he sat on a street bench to eat the chicken nuggets he'd bought from a takeout. He was then approached by 34-year-old homeless woman Teri Elena Parkin, who asked him for money. The Good Samaritan asked if she was hungry and offered her some of his nuggets. Parkin walked away without replying. A member of the public then saw her smash a bottle before making her way back towards the student. The witness tried to warn him about what was perceived as menacing behavior, but he didn't hear them. Parkin, whom it later emerged was high on spice at the time, then stabbed the teenager in the face with the broken bottle. Witnesses intervened as the victim picked a shard of glass out of his face and took photos of Parkin, who managed to flee. The teen was taken to a local hospital where his cuts were treated and he escaped permanent injury. His attacker was tracked through CCTV. Upon being approached by officers, she grabbed another bottle and raised it above her head but was quickly subdued and taken into custody. Number 2. John Thackery. In March and July of 2016, Australian man John Thackery attacked 2 people and left them fighting for their lives. In the Melbourne suburb of South Yarra, the ice-addicted 32-year-old was found in March by resident John Anderson as he slept on the back porch of his house. Anderson, a man in his mid-50s, calmly told Thackery it was time he went on his way. The drifter in turn stabbed him 8 times. One of the knife strikes pierced Anderson's heart, which resulted in him requiring life-saving open heart surgery. About 4 months later, Sean Fu confronted Thackery, believing that he was in the process of stealing his car. The homeless man walked away but returned about half an hour later with a large knife. He plunged it into Fu's face and head while also slashing an artery in his leg. The victim was placed in a medically induced coma, but like Anderson, ultimately survived the attack. Had they not received timely medical care, both would have succumbed to their knife wounds. Following his arrest and during his sentencing for attempted murder in 2017, Thackery was described as a very real danger to the community. He was consequently given a prison sentence of 14 years. Number 1. George Christopher Livingston. Police in Lake Worth, Florida, received a call in November of 2017 about a man who'd been found covered in blood while lying next to railroad tracks. The victim, 58-year-old David Beckett, was pronounced dead from visible injuries consistent with a violent attack. Responding deputies followed a trail of blood and discovered a 3-foot sword, which they determined had been used to inflict Beckett's fatal wounds. Another trail led law enforcement to a homeless camp nearby, where they found 51-year-old George Christopher Livingston, who had bloodied hands, one of which was wrapped in a bandage. Livingston, who sported a tattoo on his forehead reminiscent of a 3-point throwing star, told the police, "He attacked me," when asked about the cut on his hand. Livingston claimed to have defended himself from a man trying to abuse him and added that the purported attacker had repeatedly threatened his life in the past. He also told deputies, "Don't worry, that person is probably going to die." A witness reported to have earlier seen Livingston chasing Beckett with the sword before returning to the camp alone. He was arrested on charges of second-degree murder, and it subsequently emerged that the man had a history of legal trouble involving bladed weapons. He was arrested in 2011 for carrying a knife and a taser while at a children's play area in Boynton Beach, and in 2013 he was once again taken into custody for possession of a bladed weapon near a casino. Thanks for watching. Would you rather live out of your car or in a mansion with all of your exes? Let us know in the comments section below.